Well, to say the trip to Uganda was an experience is an understatement. It was a real experience. It was a trip that almost never happened. It was originally scheduled for a year ago, and I heard about it, and I thought, you know, that's nice. I've always wanted to go to Africa, but there's no way. And so when it was canceled and rescheduled, I said, at least I've got a year. But there's no way I can do it. The churches in Africa were begging me to come over, and I wanted to go because I first came to the Lord through word of a film on Africa. I went and heard about the gospel message. The first people, there's a slideshow, the first people you'll see will be me and a white woman and a black man. The white woman is Tammy Fox, who was originally scheduled to go with church planners, and she decided to go with me. The second is Bishop Wilson, who was, or is, a bishop in Uganda, who volunteered to do whatever I needed. And without his help, I would have never gotten or accomplished anything. I was originally called to go to conduct a marriage seminar for pastors at a pastors' conference under church planners, and had planned on that and was preparing for that. But it was on again, off again because of COVID. And suddenly, 3 weeks before we were ready to go, they suddenly decided no go. They canceled and said they were not going to reschedule because everything was too upset. You can kind of scroll the thing. These are some of the churches and pastors and people that I worked with while I was in Uganda. When I first heard that they were canceling the trip, my first thought was, well, there goes that. It was a great try, but it just never is going to happen. But God said, I've moved too many mountains to get this. I want you to go. I had not wanted to go originally until I found somebody to go with, because I had never been overseas before and had never had organized a pastor's conference. I've preached at many of them and taught at many of them, but never organized one. And then church planners asked me if I would go to help them, and I said, that's an answer to prayer. I need some money. It's not going to happen unless I get some help. And God was very gracious. There were many of you who contributed towards that trip. Without you, it would have never happened. I appreciate that. I also appreciate all your prayers, because the devil has done everything he could to stop this trip. There I was 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, and I had nothing. I was basically starting from scratch. I didn't have anybody I was going with. I had no itinerary. The pastor's conference, everything had been canceled. I was basically starting from ground zero. My first thought was, we need to pause and regroup, and maybe in the future, but who knows what the future holds. It took me 76 years to get here. How was I going to possibly arrange another one? And so I, out of a whim, sent a note to church planners and said, is there anybody on the team that still wants to go? I had no idea what I would be doing, let alone what they would be doing. But At least I would have somebody to help me with travel arrangements and to give me, kind of clue me into how to live and survive in a foreign country. And Tammy, one of the group, said she would like to go. I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't know what she's going to do, but here goes. And comes to find out she's a lay pastor, a lay preacher rather, and she's made a number of trips. She has a catering business and is quite able to make frequent mission trips and has been to Uganda before, and she had a bishop over there that she worked with, and she said she would contact him. Because it's 9 hours difference between them and us, it's very hard scheduling anything because they're asleep when we're awake, and we're awake when they're asleep. And so I started putting out a notice to my people that I worked with there in Uganda and said, can you help me? I have about 90 people I work with in Uganda, about 50 of them in Kampala. And so I started contacting the ones in Kampala, because I feared without transportation I was going no place. And one of the guys that's in eastern Uganda had been pestering me about coming to eastern Uganda, but I told him, no, we're going to Kampala in western Uganda. I'm not going to be able to get there. Contacted me again and said, when are you coming? And I said, well, you know, everything's up in the air. We don't know what's going on. He contacted his bishop. His bishop contacted me and said, whatever you need, you got it. Transportation, housing, scheduling, you got it. So I said, that's going to be an answer to prayer. And so I started contacting my people there and saying, I'm coming. And I figured in 3 weeks, by that time it was 2 weeks, there's no way we're going to get anything scheduled. I mean, these churches got to pull together. Everybody's telling me it's going to take 6 to 9 months to organize something. I figured I'd go, I'd sit there in the conference center, call people, may have someone visit me. That's about all we're going to get out of it. Within 2 days after Bishop Wilson contacted me, he contacted me back and said, your schedule for the 2 weeks is full. We're turning churches away. I said, whoa. You know, 2 days, full schedule, 12 days. I preached at 10 churches, conducted marriage conferences at 6 of those churches, had 2 pastors' conferences, and met with a number of bishops in Kampala. It was exciting, but exhausting. I was on the go constantly. Some of these churches were 2 to 4 hours away. I spent a couple days in western Kampala with some of the churches that had been scheduled for church planners. I then spent a week in Kampala and then went several days in eastern Uganda where I conducted services as well. So it was a busy schedule. The one down part of the trip was the trip home. Everywhere I went, people were eager to hear the Word of God. They were eager to find out how to win their neighbors to Christ. The pastors were eager to find out how to plant churches. Bishop Wilson himself had started out as the pastor, had been very successful. After his church began to grow, he began to plant new churches. As of this date, he has planted 25 churches, He is currently training 3 new pastors to begin 3 new churches. Bishop John, who was the one I worked with in western Uganda, also had contacted church planners to find out about their pastors' conference because he had heard from me that I was going to be there. He also was a church planner. They're very eager